The light of the day has long since surrendered its hold upon the horizon, retreating in a slow amber tide until only the memory of the sun remains in the deepening blue of the air. There is a specific stillness that arrives when the world ceases its striving, a quiet that does not demand attention but rather offers itself as a soft garment for the spirit. The sharp edges of the immediate world begin to blur, replaced by the vast open lungs of the earth as it exhales the heat of the afternoon. In this space between the stars and the soil, the weight of the hours falls away, and the mind is invited to wander across the threshold of centuries, back to a time when the rhythm of life was dictated by the migration of the herds and the steady, ancient pulse of the seasons. Far beyond the reach of stone walls and paved paths lies the great steppe, an ocean of grass that knows no boundary save for the curve of the earth itself. Here, the sky is not a roof, but an infinite presence, a shimmering veil of silver and obsidian that stretches from one end of existence to the other. To be here is to understand the true meaning of vastness, where the wind carries the scent of thousand-year-old dust and the silence is so profound it feels like a physical touch. Within this immense landscape, a small cluster of felt tents stands as a testament to the enduring bond between the traveler and the land. These circular dwellings, warm and resilient, are the heart of a world that moves with the grace of the clouds, and it is here, among the woven rugs and the scent of the evening fire, that the story of the night begins to unfold. You find yourself reclining upon a thick layer of felted wool, the texture beneath your fingers dense and comforting, carrying the faint earthy aroma of the sheep that provided it. Around you, the air is crisp, a cool draft that brushes against your skin like the wing of a moth. Yet you are perfectly shielded within a cocoon of heavy animal furs. The furs are soft and deep fox, wolf, and thick-grained, hydrating the warmth of the day and the natural heat of your own presence. As you settle into the padding of the rugs, the ground beneath you feels remarkably solid, a grounding force that anchors you to the very center of the world. Looking upward, the tent's smoke hole offers a perfect, circular window into the heavens. Through this aperture, the stars appear like scattered diamonds upon a velvet cloth. They do not flicker with the frantic energy of the lowlands. Here, they glow with a steady, ancient light, their arrangements familiar to the ancestors who watched them from this same grass 1,000 years prior. The Milky Way is a river of pale light, a celestial path that seems to flow directly into the opening of the tent, connecting the hearth fire below to the cold, beautiful fires above. Outside the walls of the tent, the steppe is alive with the subtlest of movements. You hear the long, rhythmic sigh of the grass as the wind passes through it, a sound like a distant sea breaking upon a shore of emerald and gold. Each blade of grass, dried by the summer sun and cooled by the autumn moon, leans against its neighbor, creating a soft, dry rustle that never truly ceases. It is the breath of the earth itself, slow and unhurried, a lullaby without words that has been sung since the first mountains rose. The scent of the camp is a rich tapestry of survival and peace. There is the lingering fragrance of wild artemisia and sage, crushed under the hooves of the horses earlier in the evening, now releasing their sharp, medicinal sweetness into the night. Mingling with this is the smell of the fire, not a roaring blaze, but the glowing heart of dried dung and birch wood, which gives off a thick, sweet smoke that smells of the hearth and the home. It is a scent that promises safety, a fragrance that has meant rest to every generation of nomads who have ever crossed these plains. A few yards away, the horses are tethered, their silhouettes dark and sturdy against the starlight. You can hear the rhythmic sound of their grazing, the occasional soft thud of a hoof as one shifts its weight, and the low, contented vibration of a horse blowing through its nostrils. Their presence is a quiet reassurance, a circle of living warmth that guards the perimeter of the camp. They are as much a part of this landscape as the wind, their spirits intertwined with the people who sleep nearby. Occasionally, the faint chime of a metal bit or a wooden toggle clinks in the dark, a musical note that punctuates the silence without breaking it. The sky continues its slow, majestic rotation. The great bear turns its heavy tail toward the north, and the constellations of the hunter and the shepherd rise in their appointed turns. You watch the stars move across the circle of the smoke hole, a slow-motion procession that reminds you of the insignificance of haste. In this place, there is no such thing as being late. There is only the arrival of the light and the departure of the shadow. The clouds are few, mere wisps of translucent silk that drift lazily across the face of the moon, momentarily silvering the world before moving on toward the distant Altai Mountains. The camp itself has descended into a state of total equilibrium. The voices that were once murmuring tales of the hunt and the high pastures have softened into the steady, quiet breathing of those within the tents. You can hear the heavy felt of the door flap occasionally move in the breeze, a soft thump against the wooden frame, followed by the stillness once more. The dogs, those lean and watchful guardians of the flock, have curled themselves into tight circles near the embers, their heads resting upon their paws, their ears twitching only at the sound of a distant wolf's howler sound. So far away, it is more like a memory of a sound, a thin ribbon of music on the edge of the horizon. As you lie there, you feel the boundaries of your own body softening. The warmth of the furs and the coolness of the air create a perfect balance, a state of neither heat nor cold, but of pure existence. The rhythmic sounds of the steppe, the wind, the horses, the settling of the tents merge into a single, low-frequency hum that vibrates within your chest. It is the sound of the world at rest, the sound of the earth preparing for the long hours of the dark. The rolling hills that surround the camp are bathed in a pale, ethereal light. The moon, a crescent of polished bone, hangs low in the sky, casting long, elegant shadows that stretch across the grass like reaching fingers. The textures of the world are heightened in this silver light. The rough grain of the wooden tent poles, the intricate patterns woven into the rugs, the sheen of the horses' coats. Everything is rendered in shades of charcoal, pewter, and pearl. A world stripped of the distractions of color and reduced to its essential. Beautiful forms. You are aware of the vast distance between this camp and the next. For miles in every direction, there is nothing but the swaying grass and the prowling shadows of the night. This isolation is not a source of loneliness, but of profound peace. It is the freedom of the open space, the knowledge that the world is large and that you have found your place within a small, protected corner of it. The weight of the felt above you is a comfort, a shield against the infinite, while the ground beneath you is a connection to the eternal. The smoke from the hearth has thinned to a ghostly wisp, barely visible against the stars. The fire has retreated into a bed of glowing coals, pulsing with a faint, internal light like the heartbeat of a sleeping creature. Every so often, a tiny spark will leap upward, dancing for a fraction of a second before vanishing into the dark. A brief reminder of the energy that sustains the life of the camp. The shadows inside the tent are long and soft, moving gently as the wind nudges the exterior felt. You watch the play of these shadows, the way they stretch and contract, creating patterns that look like the flight of birds or the movement of the herds. There is a sense of being completely held, completely supported by the traditions and the tools of a people who have mastered the art of living lightly upon the earth, far across the plain. A river flows, though you cannot see it. You can only sense its presence by the way the air feels slightly cooler in that direction, and by the occasional muffled splash of a fish jumping or a deer stepping into the shallows to drink. The water moves with the same unhurried grace as the wind, a silver thread winding through the dark fabric of the steppe, carrying the melted snows of the mountains down to the thirsty lowlands. The night is a vast, quiet cathedral, and you are its witness. The air you breathe is pure and ancient, untouched by anything but the scent of the wild. With every slow breath, you feel yourself becoming more attuned to the environment. The tension in your muscles has long since dissolved, replaced by a heavy, pleasant lethargy that makes your limbs feel as though they are made of the same dense wool as the rugs. The camp is now a sanctuary of absolute stillness. The horses have stopped their grazing and now stand motionless, their spirits drifting in the twilight of consciousness. The fire is a silent red eye in the center of the world. The stars have reached their zenith, hanging suspended in the velvet dome of the night, watching over the sleepers with a benevolent, distant gaze. The grass continues its whispering, but even that sound seems to be receding, growing softer and more indistinct as the night deepens. The entire world, the mountains, the rivers, the grass, and the camp is unified in a single, magnificent gesture of repose. There is no past, and there is no future. There is only this moment, this breath, this silver light upon the veldt. The stillness of the deep night carries a weight that is both heavy and weightless, a paradox of the open plains. Within the circular walls of the dwelling, the air has found a perfect, motionless state, while just outside the veldt, the world continues its slow, rhythmic cooling. The heat that was absorbed by the earth during the sun's passage now radiates upward in a gentle, invisible tide, meeting the descending chill of the high atmosphere. This meeting of temperatures creates a delicate shimmer in the air, a transparency that makes the distant stars appear even more brilliant, their light piercing the dark with a cold, steady clarity. The central hearth, once the source of crackling light and active conversation, has now transitioned into its most intimate phase. The remaining embers are like a collection of fallen stars, pulsing with a deep, internal ruby light that seems to breathe in synchronization with the sleepers. Each time the wind finds a tiny gap in the door flap, the coals glow a fraction brighter, revealing the textures of the ash and the ancient patterns carved into the wooden supports of the tent. This soft, intermittent radiance casts long, dancing shadows across the ceiling, where the willow laths cross one another in a complex geometry of strength and grace. These shadows do not move with the haste of flicker and flame, but with the slow, deliberate grace of the turning world beyond the tents. The great herd of horses has become a part of the landscape's own architecture. They stand in loose clusters, their heavy heads lowered, their manes occasionally stirred by a passing breeze. Their sleep is not like the sleep of the people. It is a state of vigilant peace. One might shift a hind leg, the sound of a hoof sliding through the dry grass echoing like a distant drumbeat against the earth, followed by a long, vibrating sigh that escapes from deep within a powerful chest. This sound, the breath of a large, calm animal, is one of the most grounding melodies of the steppe. It speaks of trust and of a shared existence between the creature and the land. The horses are the guardians of the horizon, and even in their rest, They remain tethered to the heartbeat of the grass. The sky has shifted imperceptibly as the hours have deepened. The Great Bear has migrated further across the northern arc, its path a silent measurement of the passage of time. The Milky Way, that vast river of light, now appears so thick and textured that it seems one could reach through the smoke hole and touch the silver dust of its currents. There is no moon at this hour, or perhaps it has slipped behind the jagged teeth of the distant mountains, leaving the stars to rule the darkness alone. In this absence of lunar glare, the true depth of the universe reveals itself. The darkness is not a void. It is a rich indigo tapestry, crowded with constellations that have guided the migration of these people for thousands of years. The scent of the night has evolved as the temperature has dropped. The sharp herbal tang of sage and artemisia has mellowed, replaced by the damp, sweet smell of the dew beginning to form on the lower stalks of the grass. It is a clean, metallic scent, a premonition of the frost that might touch the high ridges before dawn. Inside the tent, the air retains the ghost of the evening meal, the richness of mutton, the sweetness of dried curds, and the earthy depth of the brick tea that was shared among the elders. These scents are the markers of a life lived in balance, a life where every resource is a gift from the herd and the land. You are a quiet observer of this grand, silent theatre. The weight of the firs over you feels like the hand of the earth itself, pressing you down into a state of profound stillness. There is a luxury in this lack of movement, a freedom in knowing that, for these hours, your only requirement is to exist. The world outside the felt walls is vast and perhaps untamed. But here, in the center of the camp, you are held in a vessel of human history. The very air seems to hum with the echoes of those who rested here before you, the storytellers. The riders, the weavers of wool. Their presence is felt in the smoothness of the tent poles and the intricate knots of the rugs, a continuity of existence that makes the night feel safe and eternal. In the distance, the sound of a hidden stream provides a constant, liquid undertone to the silence. It is the sound of water moving over smooth stones, a tireless journey from the snow-capped peaks to the wide, thirsty plains. The water does not hurry. It simply follows the path of least resistance, carving its way through the limestone and the silt with a patient, persistent energy. This sound, faint and melodic, acts as a bridge between the stillness of the camp and the wildness of the outer steppe. It reminds you that even in the height of the night's repose, the earth is in constant, gentle motion. The wind has dropped to a mere whisper, a tentative touch that barely disturbs the surface of the felt. It no longer sighs through the grass with the same vigor as it did at sunset. Instead, it wanders aimlessly through the camp, bringing with it the distant, lonely cry of a crane from the wetlands, or the soft rustle of a ground squirrel moving through its burrow. These sounds do not break the quiet, they define it. They are the punctuation marks in a long, beautiful sentence of darkness. Within the tent, the breathing of the others has settled into a deep, collective rhythm. It is a sound of absolute vulnerability and absolute strength. In the heart of the steppe, to rest is to trust in the strength of the felt, the loyalty of the dogs, and the protection of the ancestors. This shared breath creates a sense of unity, an invisible thread that binds everyone in the camp together. You are a part of this thread, a single note in a vast, quiet symphony of life. The boundaries of the self seem to expand, reaching out to encompass the sleeping children, the elders, the horses in the dark, and the very grass that bows under the weight of the night. The light of the embers has faded now to a soft, charcoal grey, with only the occasional glint of orange appearing deep within the pile. The temperature has reached its lowest point, a crisp, invigorating chill that makes the warmth of your cocoon feel even more precious. You pull the heavy fox fur a little closer to your chin, feeling the softness of the guard hairs against your skin. This simple act of seeking warmth is a primal comfort, a gesture that humans have made since the first fires were lit in the caves of the Altai. The clouds, thin and diaphanous, move with an unhurried grace across the starfield. They are like ghosts of the mountains, drifting silently toward the east. When one passes over a particularly bright star, the light is diffused into a soft, glowing halo, creating a momentary altar of light in the sky before the cloud moves on and the star returns to its sharp, singular brilliance. You track these movements with a heavy-lidded gaze, your thoughts slowing to match the pace of the drifting vapor. There is no need for conclusion, no need for resolution. There is only the sequence of the clouds and the steady pulse of the universe. The ground beneath the felt rugs seems to have become more receptive as the night progresses. It is as if the earth itself is opening up to receive the weight of the camp. You can imagine the roots of the grass reaching down into the cool soil, drawing up the moisture of the deep earth, while the stones far below settle into their ancient beds. This vertical connection from the highest star to the deepest root creates a sense of total alignment. You are situated exactly where you are meant to be, a small but essential part of a vast and harmonious system. As the night deepens further, the silence takes on a new quality of density that feels almost luminous. It is a silence that contains all the potential of the coming dawn, yet remains perfectly content in its current darkness. The world is waiting, but it is a patient waiting, a pause in the music of time that is just as important as the notes themselves. The horizon is still a long way from the first touch of grey, and the stars show no sign of fading. They remain the primary architects of the world, their silver geometry defining the limits of what can be seen and what can be imagined. The dogs of the camp, usually so alert, have surrendered to the profound quiet. One might occasionally lift its head, scenting the air for the trace of a predator or the change in the wind. Their role as guardians is intuitive, a part of their very blood, and their current stillness is the ultimate sign that all is well. The perimeter of the camp is secure, the horses are calm, and the night is a benevolent sovereign. You find your focus drifting to the small details of the tent's interior, the way the light from the smoke hole catches the edge of a copper kettle, the rough texture of the wooden chest where the family's treasures are kept, the subtle scent of old wool and dried herbs. These objects are not just tools. They are the anchors of a nomadic life, items that have been packed and unpacked 1,000 times, each one holding the memory of a different pasture, a different season. In the quiet of the night, they seem to vibrate with a life of their own, silent witnesses to the journey of the people. The sense of time has completely detached itself from the ticking of any clock. Here, time is measured by the cooling of the stones, the rotation of the stars, and the slow, inevitable deepening of the shadows. It is a wide, generous time that does not demand to be filled with action. It is a time for being, for observing, and for yielding to the natural order of the world. You feel as though you could remain in this state of suspension forever, a permanent guest of the ancient steppe. The deepest velvet of the night has begun to undergo a transformation so subtle that it is felt by the skin long before. It is perceived by the eye. The intense, crystalline cold of the midnight hours has softened into a different kind of chiller damp. Living coolness that carries the weight of the coming dew. This is the hour of the blue shadow, the time when the universe seems to hold its breath in the narrow space between the departing stars and the first hesitant reach of the morning. The silence, once heavy and solid, now feels translucent, as if the air itself is thinning to allow the first movements of the day to pass through it without disturbance. High above the circular opening of the tent, the stars that reigned with such fierce brilliance only hours ago are beginning to lose their sharp, diamond edges. The smaller, more distant lights have already dissolved into the deepening indigo of the sky, leaving only the great navigators, the steady planets, and the brightest constellations to maintain their vigil. The Milky Way, once a thick river of silver dust, is fading like a wisp of wood smoke caught in a morning breeze. There is no sudden flash of light, no violent change. There is only a slow, inevitable withdrawal of the infinite as the horizon prepares to reclaim its boundaries. The grass of the steppe, which had stood motionless in the dead of night, begins to stir with the first phantom currents of the pre-dawn air. This is not the wind of the afternoon, but a gentle, wandering sigh that moves across the plains, bringing with it the scent of wet earth and the sharp, clean fragrance of the high-altitude frost. Each blade of grass is now heavy with a single, trembling bead of moisture, a liquid pearl that catches the dying starlight and reflects it back toward the sky. As the breeze ripples through the valley, the sound is no longer a dry rustle, but a soft, rhythmic hush, the sound of the earth washing its face in the cool of the morning. Within the camp, the stillness remains profound, yet its quality has changed. The heavy, dream-filled slumber of midnight has transitioned into the light, liminal state of the early riser. You can hear the shifts in the breathing of those nearby, a sigh, a soft movement of a limb against the wall, the rustle of a heavy fur being pulled tighter against the morning nip. The heat of the central hearth has vanished, leaving only a faint, sweet scent of cold ash and charred birch, a scent that speaks of the day that has passed and the necessity of the fire that will soon be reborn. The horses, those dark sentinels of the dark, are the first to acknowledge the coming change. You hear the rhythmic sound of a tail swishing against a flank, a sharp, sudden snort as a stallion clears the night's dust from his nostrils, and the low, muffled thud of a hoof as the herd begins to rouse itself from its standing sleep. They do not move with urgency. They stretch their powerful necks, their ears swiveling toward the east, where the sky is just beginning to transition from the color of a crow's wing to the color of weathered slate. They are tuned to the frequency of the light, their ancient instincts sensing the sun long before it clears the edge of the world. Far across the rolling hills, the first voice of the morning rezeza, single, lonely whistle of a steppe bird, a sharp note that cuts through the silence like a silver needle through silk. It is followed, moments later, by a distant reply from the marshes, and then by the low, haunting call of a crane. These sounds are not a clamor. They are isolated threads of melody that weave together to form the first layer of the morning's tapestry. They announce that the world is still here, that the life of the steppe has survived the dark and is ready to resume its steady, unhurried pace. The light is now beginning to pull along the eastern horizon, a thin ribbon of pale grey that is as delicate as the edge of a moth's wing. It does not look like light yet, but rather like the absence of shadow. It slowly spreads upward, diluting the blackness of the sky into a deep, bruised purple. The silhouettes of the hills, which had been indistinguishable from the sky, now begin to sharpen. You can see the jagged line of the ridges, the soft curves of the slopes, and the dark, tangled patches of scrub willow that mark the course of the hidden stream. The world is being resketched, line by slow line, in a palette of lead and silver. You lie in the warmth of your cocoon, watching the circle of the sky above you turn from charcoal to wood ash. The air that enters the tent through the smoke hole is wonderfully fresh, carrying the vitality of the vast, open spaces. It is an air that has travelled over mountain passes and across salt flats, purified by the cold and the stars. As you breathe it in, you feel a quiet clarity settling into your bones. There is no rush to move, no demand to begin the labours of the day. The nomads know that the morning must be allowed to arrive at its own pace, that the transition from the world of spirits to the world of men is a journey that should not be hurried. In the tents nearby, the first subtle signs of human life begin to emerge. It is not the sound of voices, but the sound of intent. A wooden chest creaks as it is opened. A metal pot chimes softly against a stone. The heavy felt of a door flap is pushed aside, allowing a shaft of the grey pre-dawn light to cut through the interior gloom. These are the sounds of the hearth-keepers, those who move with the practiced silence of ghosts to tend to the first needs of the camp. Soon, the scent of the fire will return, not the thick, heavy smoke of the evening, but the sharp, acrid scent of tinder and dried grass catching the first spark. Outside, the dew has turned the entire steppe into a shimmering sea of mercury. As the grey light grows stronger, the individual colours of the land begin to bleed back into existence. The deep greens of the river moss, the pale gold of the cured grass, the reddish tint of the clay on the hillsides, all of it is muted and soft, as if viewed through a veil of fine muslin. The world is not yet ready for the brilliance of the sun. It is content in this silver hour, a time of preparation and quiet reflection. The dogs of the camp have risen, stretching their long, lean bodies and shaking the dampness from their coats with a rhythmic thud-thud of their ears against their heads. They move through the camp with a purposeful air, sniffing the perimeter, checking the wind, and eventually settling near the doors of the tents, waiting for the first scraps of the morning meal. Their presence is a bridge between the wildness of the steppe and the order of the camp, a reminder that the day brings both opportunity and responsibility. The sky in the east is now beginning to warm, the slate grey giving way to a pale, translucent lemon, which in turn melts into a soft, dusty rose. This is the wolf's light, the time when the shadows are longest and the world feels most enchanted. The stars have all but vanished, with only the morning star remaining, a solitary, defiant spark hanging just above the glow of the horizon. It is a beacon of constancy, a promise that the cycles of the earth remain unbroken. You feel the weight of the rugs upon you, a comforting reminder of the night's protection, even as your mind begins to follow the light outward. You imagine the vast herds of gazelle and wild ass that are waking miles away, their hooves stirring the mist that clings to the hollows of the land. You think of the eagle on its crag, preening its feathers and waiting for the first thermal to rise from the warming rocks. The entire steppe is a single, breathing entity, and you are a cell within its massive body. Waking in unison with the grass and the stone, the movement within the camp becomes more rhythmic, the sound of a leather bucket being dipped into a water barrel, the soft, rhythmic thwack of a woman beating a rug to clear the night's dust, the low, melodic humming of an elder as they offer a morning prayer to the blue sky. These are the threads of nomadic life, woven together without friction. There is no clatter of machinery, no shouting of orders. The work begins as the light begins, naturally, steadily. and with a deep respect for the silence that still lingers in the corners of the valley. The mist in the lowlands is beginning to stir, coiling and uncoiling like a white serpent as the air warms. It obscures the base of the hills, making the peaks appear as though they are floating on a sea of cloud. As the light strengthens, the mist becomes luminous, glowing with an internal radiance that seems to come from the earth itself. It is a fleeting beauty, a gift of the morning that will vanish the moment the sun's rim clears the horizon, but for now, it transforms the steppe into a landscape of myth and memory. The horses are now fully active, though still calm. They graze with a renewed vigor, the sound of their teeth tearing the succulent, dew-drenched grass, a steady, grounding rhythm. A foal, emboldened by the light, makes a short, playful gallop around its mother, its hooves kicking up tiny sprays of silver water before it returns to her side. The herd is a mirror of the camper community that knows its place in the world, a group of souls that moves as one under the watchful eye of the heavens. Inside the tent, the air is no longer still. The first wisp of smoke from the newly lit hearth rises toward the smoke hole, a thin blue thread that signals the return of the domestic fire. It carries the scent of the morning tea, salt, and the rich, fatty aroma of mare's milk being heated. This is the scent of the new day, a fragrance that pulls the remaining sleepers toward the waking world. The transition is almost complete. The kingdom of the night is folding its silver tents and retreating into the shadows of the mountains, leaving the world to the reign of the sun. The golden spear of the sun now broadens, spilling across the undulations of the steppe like a slow-moving flood of molten honey. The light is horizontal and heavy, stretching the shadows of the horses until they reach across the valley, turning every blade of grass into a slender pillar of emerald fire. There is no sudden clamor to mark this transition. The nomads move with a grace born of 1,000 years of practice, a rhythm that is as much a part of their bodies as the act of breathing. The transformation of the camp from a place of rest to a vessel of movement begins with the quiet dismantling of the hearth, the final wisps of blue smoke rising, like a signature against the brightening sky. You watch as the first of the gears begins to change its shape. The heavy felt coverings, which provided such thick, protective warmth through the freezing night, are unlaced with steady, deliberate hands. There is a deep, resonant sound, the thrum of heavy wool being folded, a sound that carries the weight of the sheep and the labor of the weavers. As the felt is removed, the skeleton of the dwelling is revealed, a delicate, interlocking lattice of willow wood, stained dark by years of smoke and handling. It looks like the cage of a great bird, fragile in its appearance but incredibly strong in its design. One by one, the wooden laths are collapsed, the sections folding into one another with a series of muffled wooden clicks, until the home that held the night's dreams is reduced to a stack of timber and a pile of soft, grey fabric. This process is repeated across the camp in a silent, synchronized dance. There is no need for commands or shouts. Every person knows the tension of the ropes, the weight of the poles, and the sequence of the packing. The children lead the smaller animals, the goats and the fat-tailed sheep, away from the immediate workspace, their young voices low and musical in the crisp air. The movement is circular and rhythmic. First, the interior treasures are secured into wooden chests. Then the rugs are rolled. Then the lattice is folded. And finally, the heavy wooden door frames are laid atop the carts. It is an architecture of disappearance, a testament to the belief that the land should be left exactly as it was found, marked only by the flattened circle of grass where the hearth once sat. The carts themselves are ancient in design, with large, wooden wheels that speak of long distances and uneven ground. As the heavy bundles of felt are hoisted onto their beds, the wood groans a low, complaining creak that seems to echo the antiquity of the steppe itself. This sound is the true anthem of the migration. It is the sound of bone and wood, of leather and hide, moving in concert with the pulling power of the oxen and the steady endurance of the camels. The beasts of burden stand patiently, their breath huffing in the cool morning air, their large, liquid eyes reflecting the widening horizon. They are the silent partners in this journey, the living engines that bridge the gap between one pasture and the next. The scale of the land begins to assert itself as the sky grows paler and more vast. From your vantage point, the horizon seems to have pushed back, revealing even more distant ridges and further stretches of the golden sea. The steppe does not reveal itself all at once. It unfolds in layers, each rise in the ground revealing another valley, another dry riverbed, another stand of resilient scrub. To move across this landscape is to understand that progress is not measured by speed, but by the steady, unceasing rhythm of the footfall. Whether it is the soft thud of the camel's padded foot or the sharp clip of the horse's hoof, the pace is set by the earth, not by the traveler. You find yourself walking now, the ground beneath your boots feeling springy and alive. The dew has mostly evaporated, leaving the grass warm to the touch as the sun climbs higher. The scent of the morning is changing again. The cold, metallic fragrance of the frost has been replaced by the dry, sweet aroma of sun-warmed hay and the musk of the moving herds. There is a profound sense of purpose in this walk. It is not a flight from the previous place, nor a frantic rush toward the next. It is a state of being in transit, a recognition that for the nomad, the journey is the home. The horses are driven in a loose, flowing river of chestnut, bay, and grey. They move ahead of the carts, their manes tossing like the foam on the crest of a wave. The riders sit easy in their saddles, their bodies swaying in perfect harmony with the gait of their mounts. They are not separate from the animals. They are a single, fluid entity, moving with an economy of motion that has been perfected over centuries. Occasionally, a rider will let out a low, melodic whistle to guide a straying foal back to the group, a sound that carries far across the stillness of the plain. The horses respond intuitively, their collective movement creating a soft, rhythmic drumming that vibrates through the soles of your feet. The repetition of the daily life here is a source of comfort, a sequence of events that provides a framework for the vastness of the space. Every knot tied in a leather thong, every adjustment of a pack saddle, every shared glance between the travelers is a ritual of survival and belonging. There is a deep, unhurried dignity in the work. No one looks at a watch. No one frets over the passing minutes. Time is measured by the position of the sun against the distant peaks and the gradual deepening of the shadows in the coulees. It is a wide, generous time that allows for thought, for observation, and for a quiet connection to the living world. As the caravan stretches out across the plain, you look back at the site where the camp stood only an hour ago. The grass is slowly beginning to stand upright again, the blades shaking off the memory of the heavy rugs. The circle of the hearth is the only sign that humanity was ever there, and even that will be blurred by the wind and the rain within a few days. This lack of permanent footprint is the nomad's greatest pride. They move across the face of the earth like the shadows of the clouds, leaving the skin of the world unbroken. The sun is now high enough to cast a brilliant, white light across the landscape, turning the distant rivers into ribbons of flashing silver. The air is warming, the chill of the dawn now a distant memory, replaced by a dry, invigorating heat that makes the horizon shimmer with a faint, liquid haze. The sky is a flawless, deep turquoise, a dome so vast that it seems to press down upon the earth with a gentle, invisible weight. In this light, the colors of the steppe are vivid, the silver green of the sage, the ochre of the exposed soil, the brilliant white of the clouds that have begun to gather like sheep on the far edge of the world. The migration moves with the steady persistence of water. It flows around the bases of the hills, follows the contours of the slopes, and spreads out across the flat pans of the salt flats. There is no friction in this movement. The heavy wheels of the carts turn with a rhythmic crick-clack, crick-clack, a sound that becomes the heartbeat of the morning. You walk in the wake of the carts, surrounded by the dust kicked up by the herds of fine, golden powder that hangs in the air, catching the sunlight and turning the caravan into a procession of light and shadow. You notice the small details of the landscape as you pass. A hawk circling high above, its wings motionless as it rides the rising thermals. A colony of marmots standing at attention near their burrows, watching the passing giants with dark, curious eyes. The intricate patterns of the lichen on a solitary boulder that has sat in the same spot since the world was young. These things are the landmarks of the nomad. They do not need signs or maps. They read the land as a familiar book, recognizing the shape of a rock or the bend of a dry creek as a friend would recognize a face. The sense of shared rest from the night has now transformed into a sense of shared effort. Even the smallest child has a role, perhaps carrying a lightweight bundle or helping to keep the sheep from wandering too far into the tall grass. This collective labor is the glue that holds the culture together. It is a life of mutual dependence, where the welfare of the individual is inseparable from the welfare of the herd and the clan. There is a quiet joy in this cooperation, a lack of ego that allows the group to move as a single, harmonious organism. The horizon remains as far away as ever, a constant promise of more space, more grass, and more sky. To look ahead is to see the infinite. To look behind is to see the path already traveled. Both are equally beautiful. The steppe does not demand that you arrive. It only asks that you move. It is a landscape of the present tense, where the past is carried in the memories of the elders and the future is as uncertain as the wind. The rhythm of the walk begins to induce a state of meditative calm. The repetitive sounds, the creak of the wood, the jingle of the harness, the soft lowing of the cattle merge into a single, droning chord that numbs the frantic parts of the mind. You find yourself focusing on the movement of your own shadow as it shortens beneath the rising sun. Your breathing is deep and steady, filled with the clean, oxygen-rich air of the high plains. The world is large, and you are small, and there is a profound peace in that realization. The camels, at the center of the line, move with a peculiar, swaying dignity. Their long necks reach out, their split lips occasionally plucking a choice morsel of scrub as they pass, their expression one of eternal, detached wisdom. They are the true masters of the long distance, their bodies designed to endure the extremes of the steppe with a stoic grace. The sun has ascended to its mid-morning throne, a brilliant disk of white gold that hangs suspended in a sky of such intense, unblemished blue it feels as though the world has been dipped in a vat of liquid lapis. The light no longer creeps horizontally across the turf. It pours straight down, illuminating the depths of the grass and turning the rolling hills into a sea of undulating texture. There is a profound clarity to the air at this hour, a transparency that defies distance. making the farthest peaks of the horizon appear as though they are merely a few hours' walk away, their snowy crests shimmering like salt against the azure. The movement of the caravan has found its deepest, most enduring tempo. It is a pace that could be maintained for eternity as slow, swaying momentum that honors the endurance of the animals and the patience of the land. The sound of the migration has become a singular, cohesive drone. The rhythmic clack-creak of the wooden axle trees, the soft, percussive thud of thousands of hooves meeting the resilient earth, and the constant, liquid rustle of the grass being parted by the chests of the oxen and the legs of the travelers. This sound does not compete with the silence of the steppe. It belongs to it, a heartbeat that marks the steady pulse of a world in motion. As you walk, the wind comes to meet you from the north, a cool, persistent guest that carries the vitality of the high mountains. It ripples through the tall needle grass, creating patterns that look like the flight of invisible birds. The grass leans and rises, a silver-green tide that never breaks. You can see the wind long before you feel it, watching the waves of motion travel across the plains from miles away, a visual reminder of the invisible forces that govern this open space. When it finally reaches you, it smells of sun-dried earth, of wild thyme, and of the clean, sharp scent of the horse's sweater smell. That is the very essence of the nomadic life. The animals move with a collective intelligence that requires little intervention. The sheep, a dense cloud of cream-colored wool, flow around the larger carts like water around stones, their heads low as they snatch at the succulent tops of the fescue. Their constant, low-muffled bleating is a comforting undertone, a sound of social cohesion. The goats, more agile and inquisitive, dance along the edges of the group, their yellow eyes bright with the reflected light of the sun, occasionally pausing to stand on their hind legs to reach the leaves of a lone, hardy squash. They are the skirmishers of the herd, their movements quick and idiosyncratic, providing a counterpoint to the steady, heavy-set progress of the yaks and oxen high above. The birds of prey are the silent observers of the journey. A golden eagle hangs motionless on a thermal, its primary feathers spread like fingers, its head tilting with microscopic precision as it scans the grass below. It does not move its wings for minutes at a time, simply existing within the current of the air. To look up is to feel a sense of dizzying scale. The eagle is a mere speck against the immense dome of the sky, yet it is the master of all it surveys. Below it, the larks continue their vertical dances, rising in bursts of song before dropping back into the safety of the grass. Their music following the caravan like a scattered blessing. The textures of the land beneath your feet are a constant source of quiet fascination. In some stretches, the earth is firm and dark, covered in a carpet of moss and low-growing alpine flowers, tiny bursts of purple, yellow, and white that look like jewels scattered on a velvet cloth. In other places, the ground turns to a pale, sandy clay, where the hooves of the horses kick up a fine, golden dust that hangs in the air, creating a soft focus haze through which the rest of the caravan appears like a memory from a distant age. Every few miles, the group passes a cluster of ancient stones, weathered by millennia of wind into smooth, rounded shapes. These stones are the anchors of the steppe, silent witnesses to every migration that has ever passed this way. You find yourself watching the riders, the men and women who seem to be grown from the backs of their horses. Their faces are weathered by the sun and the wind, their eyes perpetually narrowed against the glare, yet their expressions are ones of profound serenity. There is no tension in their posture. They sit with a loose-limbed ease. their hands resting lightly on the pommels of their saddles, their bodies absorbing the motion of the horse with effortless grace. They are not merely traveling across the land. They are part of its ecology. They know the temperament of every horse in the herd, the lineage of every camel, and the history of every fold in the hills. The camels, heavily laden with the folded gears and the copper hearthpots, maintained their rhythmic, swaying gait. Their large, padded feet expand as they hit the ground, making a sound like a soft, heavy sigh, hush, hush, hush. They carry the weight of the people's lives with a stoic, uncomplaining dignity. On their backs, the woven saddlebags, dyed in deep reds and indigos, with patterns that tell the stories of the stars, sway in time with the movement. The copper bells hanging from their necks chime with a low, bronze frequency, a sound that can be heard for miles across the stillness, a signal to any distant traveler that a clan is on the move. Time has ceased to be a linear progression and has become a state of being. The midday sun reaches its zenith, casting almost no shadow at all, making the world feel flattened and brilliant. This is the hour of the great heat, when the air begins to shimmer over the salt flats and the distant ridges seem to float and dissolve in the haze. The caravan does not stop, but the pace becomes even more deliberate. The conversation among the travelers has faded, replaced by the shared focus of the journey. Every breath is a taste of the vastness. Every step a reaffirmation of the nomad's vow to remain in motion. You look to the children, who are the most adaptable of all. A young boy rides a sturdy pony, his small hands buried in its thick mane, his eyes fixed on the horizon with a look of quiet concentration. He is learning the language of the steppe, the way the grass changes color over a hidden spring, the way the clouds gather before a storm, the way the wind speaks through the mountain passes. This knowledge is not taught in words. It is absorbed through the skin, through the ears, and through the long, slow hours of the migration. He is becoming a part of the lineage, a link in a chain that stretches back to the dawn of time. As the afternoon begins its slow, imperceptible descent, the light takes on a different quality. It loses its white brilliance and begins to acquire a hint of amber, a precursor to the long shadows of the evening. The landscape, which felt so flat at midday, begins to regain its three-dimensional depth. The ravines and gullies are picked out in shade. The textures of the rock faces become more pronounced, and the distant mountains take on a violet hue. The wind, too, begins to change, losing the frantic energy of the midday and becoming a long, cooling sigh that follows the caravan toward the west. The destination for the night is not a fixed point on a map, but a convergence of conditions. The elders are looking for the right combination of elements: grass that is thick and nutrient-rich for the horses, a source of water that is clear and accessible, and a configuration of hills that will offer protection from the prevailing night winds. This search is an intuitive process, a reading of the land's hospitality. They watch the flight of the birds, the behavior of the lead stallions, and the subtle changes in the moisture of the air. You come upon a wide, shallow valley that seems to hold the light of the sun in a golden bowl. A small river meanders through the center of it, its banks lined with silver-leafed willows and tall, swaying reeds. The grass here is lush and deep, a vibrant emerald that contrasts beautifully with the tawny slopes of the surrounding hills. As the lead riders reach the crest of the final ridge and look down into this sanctuary, there is a palpable shift in the energy of the caravan. The tension of the day's travel begins to dissolve, replaced by a sense of arrival. The lead stallion of the horse herd is the first to sense the water. He tosses his head, his mane flying like a silk banner, and breaks into a spirited trot toward the riverbank. The rest of the herd follows, a thundering wave of life that fills the valley with the sound of splashing water and contented whinnies. The horses wade into the shallows, their muzzles dipping into the cool, clear current, their tails swishing with joy as they drink their fill. The sight of the animals at the water is a universal symbol of peace, a moment of pure, uncomplicated satisfaction. The carts follow the horses down the slope, the wooden wheels creaking one last time as they find a level stretch of ground near a bend in the river. The oxen are unyoked, their heavy heads bowing as they are led to the grazing lands. The camels are brought to the center of the sight, where they drop to their knees with a series of low grunts, allowing the heavy packs to be slid from their backs. The transition from movement to stillness begins with the same rhythmic efficiency that governed the morning's departure. This new place is not just a campsite. It is a temporary home, a sacred space carved out of the vastness of the steppe. The circle is formed once more, the gars, positioned to catch the morning sun and deflect the evening wind. The hearths laid out in the center of each dwelling, and the perimeter of the camp defined by the tethered horses and the watchful dogs. You stand on a small rise above the river, watching the transformation. The orange glow of the descending sun has begun to pool in the hollows of the valley, turning the meandering river into a ribbon of liquid bronze. This is the hour of the long shadow, when every stone and every blade of grass casts a dark, elegant finger toward the east, and the air takes on a thickness that feels almost golden. The transition from the rhythm of the march to the architecture of the camp is not a disruption of the peace, but a deepening of it. It is a quiet, industrious symphony of cooperation, where the movement of every person is governed by a knowledge so old it no longer requires the use of words. You stand near the center of the chosen ground, feeling the subtle change in the earth's temperature as the sun's direct heat withdraws. Around you, the gars are rising like white mushrooms from the green turf. The process is a marvel of communal effort. 2 people hold the heavy wooden door frame upright, while others stretch the expanding lattice walls around it in a wide, welcoming circle. There is a rhythmic, wooden music to the construction, the soft clack of the willow laths, the sliding of leather thongs through ancient grooves, and the rhythmic thud of the heavy felt rolls being hoisted into place. It is a dance of necessity and grace, performed with the confidence of those who have built their homes 1,000 times in 1,000 different valleys. The heavy felt coverings, thick with the scent of sheep and the memory of the winter's wool, are draped over the wooden skeletons, as the layers are smoothed and tied down with ropes of braided horsehair. The interior of each dwelling becomes a sanctuary of shadow and stillness. You watch as the smoke hole at the very peak is aligned with the coming stars, a circular eye that will watch over the hearth throughout the night. Once the gears are secured, the interior floors are lined with the woven rugs and the heavy felt pads you remember from the night before, transforming the wild grass of the steppe into a soft, textured landscape of human comfort as the dwellings take shape. The social life of the camp begins to center around the birth of the evening fires. In the center of the cluster of tents, a communal hearth is being prepared. An elder kneels upon the earth, his movements slow and reverent, as he arranges a small pyramid of dried grass and thin birch shavings. The striking of the flint is a sharp, percussive sound in the cooling air, a tiny, bright spark that leaps into the tinder and is nurtured by a gentle, steady breath. The first ribbon of smoke is pale and fragrant, rising straight toward the turquoise sky before the fire catches, turning the pale vapor into a warm, pulsing glow of orange and red. The scent of the fire is the signal that the day's labor is concluding. It carries the aroma of the steppe's own fuel, the earthy, sweet smell of sun-dried dung and the sharp, resinous temps of mountain wood. This fragrance drifts through the camp, mingling with the scent of the cooling river and the bruised mint underfoot, creating a sensory map of safety and home. Around the growing flames, the copper kettles are brought forth, their beaten surfaces catching the firelight and reflecting it in dancing patterns across the faces of the gatherers. The sound of water being poured are clear, splashing melodies, followed by the low, steady hiss of the steam as the vessels are placed upon the iron trivets. The cooperation within the camp is a quiet marvel. There is no hierarchy of effort, only a shared understanding of what the night requires. While some tend the fires, others move toward the horse herd, which has settled into a peaceful grazing pattern near the riverbank. The riders move among the animals with a soft, melodic humming, checking the hooves and manes, adjusting the tethers, and ensuring that the lead stallions are calm. The horses respond with low nickers of recognition, their large, dark eyes soft in the fading light. There is a profound sense of kinship here. The horse is not a tool to the nomad, but a partner in the vastness, a living spirit that shares the burden of the horizon, near the water's edge. The children are engaged in their own quiet tasks. They gather the smooth, flat stones from the riverbed to line the hearths, their laughter sounding like the chime of small bells against the steady rush of the current. They move with the same unhurried economy as the adults, their small hands practiced in the art of the camp. They are learning, through the simple repetition of the evening, the values of the steppe, that nothing is wasted, that every hand has a purpose, and that the peace of the group is the responsibility of all. As the sun finally slips behind the serrated edge of the distant mountains, the sky undergoes a magnificent transformation. The vibrant orange and gold of the sunset fade into a deep, bruised violet, which in turn bleeds into a translucent indigo. The first of the evening stars, the shepherd's star, appears low in the west, a solitary, brilliant point of light that seems to hang just above the cooling ridges. The light is now indirect and soft, a shadowless twilight that makes the white felt of the gears glow with an ethereal radiance, as if they were lanterns lit from within by the spirit of the family. You find yourself sitting on a thick, patterned rug near the communal fire, the warmth of the flames reaching out to brush against your face. The cooling air of the valley makes this warmth feel like a physical embrace. The conversation around the fire is low and sparse, consisting of observations about the quality of the grass, the health of a foal, or the shape of the clouds on the horizon. There is no need for grand narratives. The day itself has been the story, and the evening is the time for its silent digestion. The rhythm of the words matches the rhythm of the fire, steady, unhurled, and comforting. A woman brings a large wooden bowl of hot tea, enriched with salt and a dollop of fresh cream. As you hold the bowl in both hands, the heat seeps through the wood and into your palms, a grounding sensation that connects you to the hearth. The tea is rich and earthy, a flavor that speaks of the deep roots of the mountains and the strength of the herd. With every sip, the fatigue of the day's march seems to settle deeper into your muscles, turning from a burden into a pleasant, heavy lethargy. You are no longer a traveler. You are a dweller in the heart of the night. The sounds of the camp are changing as the twilight deepens. The sharp, industrious noises of construction have been replaced by the domestic sounds of the evening meal. You hear the rhythmic thump-thump of a wooden plunger in a tall churn, the clatter of bowls being passed from hand to hand, and the occasional soft splash of the river as a fish rises to the surface. Beyond the circle of the firelight, the steppe is becoming a world of silhouettes. The hills are now dark, velvet shapes against the darkening sky, and the river is a path of silver that reflects the growing light of the stars. The animals, too, are settling. The sheep have huddled together in a dense, warm mass, their breathing a collective sigh that carries across the grass. The dogs have taken their positions at the edges of the camp, their ears twitching at the sound of a distant fox or the rustle of the wind in the reeds. They are the silent guardians of this temporary peace, their loyalty as ancient as the stars above. The horses have mostly stopped their grazing, standing with their heads lowered, their spirits beginning to drift into the twilight of sleep. In the firelight, the faces of your companions are rendered in warm tones of amber and bronze. The flickering flames create a sense of intimacy, drawing everyone closer to the center, away from the immense, encroaching dark of the outer plains. There is a feeling of being in a small, floating island of light and warmth in the middle of a vast, obsidian ocean. This isolation is not a source of fear, but of profound connection. Within the circle of the fire, the world is known, safe, and shared. Outside, the world is infinite and mysterious. But it is a mystery that is respected, not feared. The sky is now crowded with stars, their numbers increasing with every passing minute, as the last of the sun's light vanishes from the western rim. The Milky Way is beginning to reveal its pale, luminous path, a celestial river that mirrors the terrestrial one flowing just a few yards away. The air is now truly cold, a crisp, clean chill that makes the scent of the wood smoke even more pronounced. You pull a heavy wool cloak around your shoulders, the fabric thick and coarse, providing a secondary layer of protection against the night. The elders begin to tell stories, not the epic tales of war or conquest, but the small, observational stories of the land. They speak of the great white buffalo cloud that appeared over the Altai, of the time the river changed its course after a spring thaw, and of the ancestors who first discovered this particular valley. These stories are the threads that bind the generations together, ensuring that the memory of the land is never lost. The voices are low and melodic, the words flowing like the river, a lullaby for the spirit that reinforces the sense of belonging. You watch the sparks from the fire rise up toward the smoke hole, dancing for a few seconds before disappearing into the starlight. Each spark is a brief, beautiful life, a moment of energy in the vast silence of the night. The fire is the heart of the camp, the source of light, warmth, and community. It is the bridge between the human and the divine, the physical and the spiritual. As the embers begin to settle into a deep, pulsing crimson, the sense of peace in the camp reaches its zenith. The twilight has finally pulled its last violet hem from the edge of the world, leaving the steppe to the sovereignty of the deep night. The transition is now absolute. The vibrant amber energy of the evening has cooled into a profound obsidian stillness. Above, the sky has transformed into a masterwork of celestial geometry, without the interference of modern light or the haze of the lowlands. The stars do not merely twinkle, they burn with a steady, ancient ferocity. They are so numerous and so bright that they seem to exert a gentle pressure upon the earth, a silver weight that encourages everything beneath them to settle, to soften, and to descend into the quietude of the soil. The Milky Way has become the primary feature of the heavens, a great, frosted bridge of light that arches from one horizon to the other. It looks like a path of spilled salt or a river of crushed pearls. Its currents and eddies so clearly defined that the eye can trace the dark rifts of cosmic dust that meander through its center. Around the camp, the land has lost its color but gained a new, ethereal dimension. In the absence of the sun, the moonlight now a pale, cool crescent washes the white felt of the gears in a shade of pearlescent gray. The tents look less like man-made structures and more like outcroppings of the earth itself. Weathered stones that have breathed in the starlight until they glow from within. You are lying once again upon the thick, woven rugs inside the dwelling, but the door flap has been left slightly ajar, allowing a sliver of the night to enter. The air that drifts in is cold, crisp, and carries the scent of the river's mist and the frozen dew of the high grass. It is an air that feels thin and pure, a draught that cleanses the senses. Within the circle of the tent, the shadows are long and soft. The central hearth has been banked for the night. The high flames are gone, replaced by a bed of glowing coals that pulse with a rhythmic, deep crimson light. This glow is the only color in the room, reflecting off the polished wooden poles of the roof and the brass fittings of the storage chests, creating a sanctuary of warmth that feels infinitely secure against the vast, cold emptiness of the outer plains. Outside, the great silence of the steppe is not a void, but a complex tapestry of the subtlest sounds. You hear the long, rhythmic sigh of the wind as it brushes against the heavy felt of the tent, a sound like a distant sea. It is a constant, low-frequency hum that vibrates through the wooden frame, a reminder of the immense space that surrounds this small cluster of humanity. Occasionally, the wind carries the sound of the river a soft, liquid gurgle as the water navigates a bend or spills over a cluster of smooth stones. These are the songs of the earth, melodies that have no beginning and no end, played on the instruments of water, wood, and grass. The animals have moved into the deepest part of their nocturnal rest. The horse herd, tethered loosely near the river, has become a collection of dark, unmoving silhouettes. You hear the occasional muffled thud of a horse as a horse shifts its weight in its sleep, followed by a long, vibrating breath that sounds like a prayer of contentment. Their spirits are drifting in the same current as yours, tethered to the land by the shared necessity of rest. The sheep and goats have huddled into a single, warm mass, their bodies pressed together to preserve the heat of the day. From their direction comes a soft, collective rustle, a sound of wool against wool, and the occasional, rhythmic grind of a jaw as a wave dreams of the high clover. The dogs of the camp have finally yielded to the profound stillness. They are curled into tight circles near the thresholds of the tents, their noses tucked under their bushy tails, their breathing so shallow and steady that it is almost imperceptible. They have done their work. The perimeter is quiet, the herds are safe, and the night has proven itself to be a benevolent guardian. Even the wild things of the steppe seem to have reached a truce with the camp. The yipping of the foxes has moved far into the distant hills, and the owls have moved their hunting grounds to the marshes, leaving the immediate valley in a state of crystalline peace. As you lie there, the texture of the rugs beneath you feels incredibly detailed, the individual knots of the wool, the slight roughness of the vegetable dyes, the density of the felt that has been compressed by generations of use. The ground beneath the rugs is a solid, unyielding presence, a foundation that reaches down to the very core of the world. You feel a sense of total alignment with this foundation. There is no part of you that is not supported, no part of you that is not held. The tension that you carried through the long miles of the day's migration has completely evaporated. leaving your limbs feeling heavy, warm, and integrated into the darkness. The light of the embers continues its slow, hypnotic pulse. Every few minutes, a coal will shift, settling deeper into the ash with a tiny musical clink, releasing a final miniature plume of golden sparks that rise toward the smoke hole. You track their flight until they vanish into the star field above. A brief bridge between the fire of the earth and the fire of the heavens. This connection between the hearth at the center and the stars at the zenith is the axis upon which the nomadic world turns. It provides a sense of orientation that is both physical and spiritual, a knowledge that you are exactly where you belong in the grand architecture of the universe. The time has now reached that depth of night where the world feels as though it has always been dark and will always be so. The concept of morning is a distant, abstract thought, irrelevant to the present reality of the shadows. Here, in the heart of the steppe, the night is not a bridge between days. It is a destination. It is a kingdom of pure perception, where the eyes are closed but the spirit is wide open to the frequencies of the land. You feel the slow rotation of the earth beneath you, a majestic, unhurried turning that carries the camp and the herds, and the mountains toward the distant promise of the dawn. The atmosphere of the tent is thick with the scent of history. It is the smell of aged wood, of dried herbs hanging from the laths, of the milk tea that was shared at twilight, and of the clean, honest musk of the animal furs. These scents are the markers of a life lived in balance, a life that does not struggle against the environment but flows with it. Every element of this room, from the copper kettle to the silk hangings, has a purpose and a story. In the quiet of the night, these stories seem to vibrate in the air, a silent chorus of the ancestors who rested in this same way under these same stars. For thousands of years, through the gap in the door flap, you watch the movement of a single, bright star as it passes behind a distant ridge. The movement is so slow that it is almost a test of patience, yet it is as relentless as the tide. This is the pace of the steppe, the pace of the growing grass, the pace of the drifting clouds, the pace of the seasonal migration. To be here is to surrender to this pace, to let go of the frantic, artificial rhythms of the outer world and to resynchronize the heart with the slow, steady drumbeat of the soil. The cold outside the tent has deepened, creating a thin glaze of frost upon the outer felt. This layer of ice acts as an additional insulator, sealing the warmth of the hearth inside and making the interior feel even more like a cocoon. You can imagine the blades of grass outside, each one becoming a silver needle under the touch of the frost, standing tall and silent in the moonlight. The world is being preserved in a state of crystalline perfection, a frozen moment of beauty that will remain undisturbed until the sun returns to melt the spell. The breathing of the others in the tent has become a single, unified sound, a slow, deep tide of inhalation and exhalation that mirrors the movement of the wind outside. There is a profound sense of trust in this shared breathing. In the vastness of the steppe, to sleep is to offer oneself up to the night, confident in the protection of the group and the hospitality of the land. This trust is the invisible fabric that holds the nomadic culture together, a bond that is stronger than any stone wall or iron gate. You are a part of this fabric now, a single thread woven into a tapestry of peace. Your thoughts have become like the clouds over the Alti thin, wispy and slow-moving. They do not demand answers. They simply drift across the landscape of your mind, dissolving into the indigo shadows before they can take shape. The need to understand, to categorize, or to plan has been replaced by the simple, glorious fact of existence. You are a breathing creature on a breathing planet, a small spark of consciousness in a vast, starlit dark. This realization brings with it a sense of lightness, as if the gravity of the world has been lessened by the beauty of the night. The embers are now mostly covered in a fine, grey ash, their red light becoming more internal, more private. The shadows in the tent have deepened, the corners disappearing into a velvety blackness that feels soft and inviting. The only light remaining is the silver glow of the moon through the smoke hole, a cool celestial beam that falls across the center of the rug like a fallen pillar of light. You watch the dust motes dancing in this beam, tiny stars within the room, moving in a slow, chaotic ballet that has no beginning and no end. The silence has reached its maximum density. It is so quiet that you can hear the faint, crystalline sound of the frost forming, a microscopic clicking that only emphasizes the lack of human noise. The river's song has become a part of the silence, a constant that the ear no longer perceives as a separate sound. The deep night on the ancient steppe possesses a quality of permanence, as if the darkness itself has become a physical substance, a vast and gentle sea of shadow that has no beginning and no end. Within the heavy, felted walls of the air is thick with the history of the earth, the smell of aged willow, the faint, sweet residue of milk tea, and the deep, comforting scent of sheep's wool that has been weathered by the seasons. The silence here is a living thing, a profound and resonant quiet that does not feel like an absence of sound, but rather like the presence of a deep, ancient understanding. You lie in the warmth of your furs, the weight of the night pressing softly against the exterior of the tent, and for a moment, the boundaries between the self and the land seem to blur and dissolve into the indigo dark. Memory, in this place, does not arrive in sharp, frantic flashes. It moves with the slow, deliberate grace of the stars. You find yourself thinking of the paths that led to this valley, not just the physical trail, left by the hooves of the horses and the heavy wooden wheels of the carts, but the ancestral paths that have been carved into the spirit of the people. To be a nomad is to carry one's history in the soles of the feet and the rhythm of the breath. Every hill crossed today was a hill known to the grandfathers of the grandfathers. Every bend in the river was a place where stories were told and fires were lit centuries before the first stone of a city was ever laid. These memories are not burdens. They are the anchors of the soul, providing a sense of continuity that makes the vastness of the steppe feel like a familiar room. You reach out a hand, feeling the rough, honest texture of a woven rug. In the near darkness, the patterns are invisible to the eye, but the fingers can read the geometry of the weave, the interlocking triangles that represent the peaks of the Altai, the flowing lines that signify the rivers, and the small, repetitive knots that stand for the stars. Each thread was placed by a hand that understood the necessity of beauty in a world defined by the elements. To touch the rug is to hold a conversation with the weaver, a silent exchange of respect across the threshold of time. It is a reminder that even in a life defined by movement, there is a profound dedication to craftsmanship and the creation of a home that can be packed, carried, and reborn under a different sky. The earth beneath you feels incredibly close. Through the layers of felt and wool, you can sense the immense cooling mass of the planet. It is a grounding force, a low vibration hum that speaks of the deep roots of the grass and the ancient bedrock that supports the weight of the mountains. You imagine the world beneath the turf, the tunnels of the marmots, the sleeping seeds of the wild sage, and the dark, silent stones that have not seen the sun for eons. In the deep night, the land feels like a giant, resting creature. Its breath, the wind, and its heartbeat, the slow, rhythmic shifting of the tectonic plates. You are not merely on the land. You are a part of its ecology, a temporary guest in a house that has stood since the dawn of time. Outside, the horses are the true masters of the stillness. They do not fight the night. They inhabit it. You can hear the subtle, musical chime of a metal ring as one stallion shifts his weight, followed by the soft, rhythmic grinding of a jaw as he processes the sweet, sun-dried grass of the afternoon. Their presence is a circle of living warmth that guards the camp, a shared consciousness that remains alert even in the depths of repose. You think of the bond between the rider and the horse, a relationship not of master and servant, but of two spirits who have agreed to navigate the world together. The horse provides the speed and the strength, while the human provides the direction and the care. In the silence of the night, this bond feels like the most essential truth of the steppe. The moon has shifted its position in the sky, its pale light now falling at a steeper angle through the smoke. This silver pillar illuminates a small patch of the interior, revealing the fine, dancing motes of dust that hang in the still air. They move in slow, chaotic spirals, unaffected by the gravity of the earth, like tiny planets in a private galaxy. You watch them, your gaze heavy and soft, and find a profound peace in their aimless, beautiful motion. There is no hurry in the dust, no destination in the shadows. There is only the present moment, the steady rise and fall of your chest, and the cold, magnificent clarity of the stars. Your mind drifts to the concept of the horizon. During the day, the horizon is a goal, a line to be chased and reached. But at night, the horizon disappears, replaced by the vertical depth of the universe. The world is no longer wide, it is deep. You are no longer looking out, you are looking up. The stars are so numerous and so bright that they seem to be reaching down, their light a physical touch against the skin. You think of the names the ancestors gave these stars, the Great Bear, the Iron Stake, the Three Stags. These names were not just labels. They were stories, a way of domesticating the infinite and making the cold fires of the heavens feel like the familiar fires of the hearth. The embers in the central hearth have reached their final, most secretive phase. They are no longer orange or red, but a deep, pulsing violet grey, glowing from within like the heart of a mountain. Every so often, the wind finds a tiny fissure in the felt of the door, and the coals breathe a final, ghostly light into the room before settling back into the ash. This light is enough to reveal the silhouettes of the wooden supports, the uni of the roof, which radiate outward from the center, like the spokes of a wheel. It is a shape that mirrors the world, the hearth at the center, the people around the hearth, and the sky above the people. It is a geometry of belonging, a design that has protected the nomads from the winter's bite and the summer's glare for as long as memory exists. The cold of the deep night is a pure, uncompromising force. It is not a cruel cold, but a clarifying one. It strips away the distractions of the day, leaving only the essential. Inside the firs, you are a pocket of living heat, a small fire of consciousness in the middle of a vast, frozen cathedral. You feel the contrast between the warmth of your skin and the crispness of the air on your cheeks. This contrast makes the warmth feel more precious, more deliberate. It is a reminder of the fragility of life and the strength of the tools that sustain it. The felt, the wood, the wool, the fire, these are the elements of survival, refined through the ages into a system of perfect efficiency. In the distance, the river continues its tireless, liquid monologue. It is a sound that has no beginning and no end, a constant that the mind eventually accepts as a part of the silence. You think of the water's journey, how it began as a single snowflake on the highest peak of the Altai, how it melted in the spring sun and trickled down through the granite cracks, how it joined 1,000 other trickles to become the silver thread that now winds past the camp. The water is a traveler, too, always moving, always changing, yet always the same. It is a mirror of the nomadic life, a reminder that to move is to live, and to flow is to endure. The silence of the camp is punctuated by the soft, rhythmic breathing of your companions. It is a communal sound, a collective sigh that reinforces the sense of safety. In the vastness of the steppe, the group is the only protection. To be alone is to be at the mercy of the wind and the wolf. To be together is to be a part of a living fortress. This shared existence is a quiet, powerful force, a bond that is forged in the labor of the day and the rest of the night. You feel a deep, wordless gratitude for the people around you, for the hands that built the tent, the eyes that watch the herds, and the spirits that share this silence with you. As the night progresses, the textures of the dark seem to deepen. The shadows in the corners of the ger become more velvety, more absolute. The sounds of the outer world, the rustle of the grass, the sigh of the wind seem to recede, leaving you in a state of sensory isolation that is profoundly restorative. You are no longer aware of the passage of time. The concept of an hour or a minute has no meaning here. There is only the cycle of the breath and the rotation of the constellations. You have entered the heart of the night, a place where the soul can rest without the interference of the waking world. Memory drifts back again, this time to the sense of the steppe. You can almost taste the wild chive that grows in the high pastures, the sharp, medicinal tang of the wormwood, and the sweet, heavy fragrance of the yellow pea bushes in the spring. These scents are the markers of the seasons, the calendar of the nomad. Each smell is associated with a different valley, a different migration, a different memory. To know the steppe is to know its fragrance, to recognize the arrival of the rain or the approach of the frost by the way the air changes its character. In the stillness of the tent, these scents seem to linger in the wool and the wood, a sensory map of the world outside. The moon has now begun its descent toward the western horizon, and its light has faded from the center of the tent. The room is now entirely dark, save for the very faintest glint of the dying coals. In this absolute darkness, the other senses are heightened. You can feel the subtle vibration of the ground when a horse shifts its weight 100 yards away. You can hear the microscopic crackle of the frost forming on the exterior felt. You can sense the presence of the others, not by sight, but by the warmth they radiate and the rhythm of their breath. The thinning of the night is not a sudden occurrence, but a gradual, atmospheric surrender. The bruised indigo of the high sky begins to wash into a shade of cold charcoal, and the stars, which have stood as the only landmarks of the spirit for many hours, start to withdraw their light. They do not vanish so much as they recede into the deepening depth of the universe, their silver fires becoming faint and translucent against the emerging grey. This is the hour of the second dawn, a time that belongs neither to the dreams of the night nor the labours of the day, but to the timeless continuity of the steppe itself. It is a moment where the world feels as though it is being created anew, yet also as though it has existed in this exact state for an eternity. Inside the circle of the air is at its most still and its most cool. The moisture of the night has settled into the heavy felt of the walls, making the interior scent of wool and wood even more pronounced. You are aware of the subtle transition in the light falling through the smoke hole. It is no longer the sharp, directional beam of the moon, but a soft, diffused radiance that begins to pick out the details of the room. The wooden lattice, the colorful storage chests, and the intricate patterns of the rugs emerge from the shadows in shades of soft pewter and ash. There is a profound sense of peace in this slow revelation, a reminder that the world remains intact, that the objects of your life are exactly where you left them when the sun went down outside. The first signs of the world's reawakening are as quiet as the fall of a leaf. The grass, which has stood in frozen perfection under the touch of the night's frost, begins to breathe as the temperature shifts. You can hear the microscopic rustle of the stalks, a sound like the softest silk being. Drawn across a stone as they release their burden of dew, the mist that has gathered in the hollows of the riverbank starts to coil and drift, moving with the phantom currents of the morning air. It is a world of silver and grey, a landscape of whispers and shadows where the boundaries between the earth and the sky are momentarily erased. The horses are the first to acknowledge the arrival of the light. You hear the rhythmic, grounding sound of a large animal shifting its weight, the muffled thud of a hoof against the damp turf, and the long, vibrating sigh that marks the end of their standing sleep. One by one, the dark silhouettes of the herd begin to move, their heads dipping to the grass to take the first succulent, dew-drenched bites of the morning. The sound of their grazing, the steady, rhythmic tearing of the grasses, the first true music of the day. It is a sound of survival and satisfaction, a sound that has echoed across these plains since the first herds were domesticated by the first ancestors. The sky in the east is now undergoing a transformation that is both majestic and agonizingly slow. The charcoal grey is being replaced by a hue of pale, translucent slate, which then begins to warm into a delicate, watery lemon. There is no haste in this process. The light has all the time in the world to find its way across the curve of the earth. You watch this progression with a sense of quiet fascination, your own breathing matching the unhurried pace of the horizon. This is the timelessness of the steppe. Here, the rising of the sun is not a deadline, but a promise, a reaffirmation of the cycle that governs all living things. As the light strengthens, the sounds of the camp begin to weave into the morning tapestry. It starts with the soft thump of a felt door flap being pushed aside, followed by the quiet, purposeful footsteps of the hearth-keepers. You hear the strike of the flint, a sharp, metallic note that is quickly followed by the fragrant, acrid scent of the first tinder catching. This scent is the bridge between the two worlds. It carries the memory of the night's warmth and the potential of the day's fire. Soon, the first ribbon of blue smoke rises from the gars, climbing straight and true into the still, cold air. A silent prayer of gratitude for the return of the day. The birds of the steppe join the chorus with a tentative, melodic curiosity. A single skylark rises from the tall grass, its song a series of silver bells that seem to hang in the air long after the bird has vanished into the grey. It is answered by the low, haunting call of a crane from the riverbed and the sharp, chattering greeting of the ground squirrels. These sounds do not break the stillness. They emphasize it. They are the voices of the land itself, expressing a joy that is as ancient as the rocks and as fresh as the morning dew. You listen to this symphony from the warmth of your furs, feeling a deep, resonant connection to the life that is stirring all around you. In the camp, the work begins with a quiet, practiced cooperation that requires no instruction. You hear the chime of the copper kettles, the rhythmic splash of water being poured, and the low, musical humming of the women as they begin the morning's chores. There is a sense of great dignity in these simple acts. The making of the tea, the tending of the fire, the checking of the herds, these are not mere tasks. They are the rituals that sustain the world. They are the threads that hold the culture together, ensuring that the rhythm of the life is never broken. Even as the clan moves from one pasture to the next, the light has now reached a point of crystalline brilliance. Though the sun has not yet cleared the mountains, the entire valley is bathed in a shadowless, ethereal glow that makes the textures of the world appear hyperreal. You can see the individual blades of grass, the intricate patterns of the frost on the willow leaves, and the fine silver mist rising from the backs of the resting oxen. The world is being rendered in a palette of pearl, jade, and mercury, a temporary masterpiece of light that will exist for only a few minutes before the arrival of the sun. You sit up slowly, the cool air of the tent a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the rugs. Your movements are deliberate and slow, mirroring the pace of the world outside. There is a sense of great clarity in your mind, a feeling that the complexities of the self have been smoothed away by the simplicity of the night. You are no longer a collection of worries or plans. You are simply a witness to the dawn, a participant in the great unfolding continuity of the steppe, the journey of the previous day, the rest of the night, and the arrival of the morning all feel like a single, seamless experience. The horses are now moving with more energy, their manes tossing in the light breeze, their coats shimmering as the first direct rays of the sun hit the high ridges. The lead stallion lets out a long, spirited whinny call that echoes across the valley and seems to wake the very stones. It is a sound of power and freedom, a reminder that the steppe is a world of movement and vitality. The rest of the herd responds with a flurry of activity, a sudden, beautiful dance of hooves and tails that settles as quickly as it began. Memory and the present moment continue to intertwine. As you watch the smoke rise from the hearths, you think of the thousands of mornings just like this one that have unfolded on these plains. You think of the generations of nomads who have watched this same light, felt this same chill, and heard these same sounds. This is the true meaning of timelessness. It is not the absence of change, but the presence of a cycle so vast and so consistent that individual moments become part of a larger, eternal whole. You are a part of that whole, a link in the chain that connects the first traveler to the last. The sun finally clears the jagged edge of the mountains, and the world is instantly transformed. The silver and grey of the dawn are replaced by a blinding, glorious gold. The spears of light reach across the valley, turning the dew into a field of diamonds and the river into a path of fire. The shadows are long and dramatic once more, stretching across the grass like reaching fingers. This is the moment of completion, the final note in the song of the morning. The night is officially over, and the day has arrived with all its potential and its beauty. The camp is now fully alive, though the pace remains unhurried. The children are running toward the river, their laughter a bright, clear sound in the warming air. The elders are gathered near the central fire, their faces turned toward the sun, their eyes reflecting the wisdom of the land. There is a sense of profound readiness, a feeling that the group is prepared for whatever the horizon might bring. Whether it is a long march across the salt flats or a quiet day of grazing in the high pastures, you stand at the doorway of the gur, looking out over the vast, shimmering expanse of the steppe. The horizon is wide and inviting, a line of possibility that stretches forever under the deep turquoise of the sky. The wind is fresh and carries the scent of the wild world, the sage, the water, the earth, and the sun. You feel a sense of gentle completion approaching, a realization that the cycle of rest and movement is the most natural and beautiful way to live. The world is wide, the day is young, and the rhythm of the life is steady and true. You take a deep, slow breath, filling your lungs with the purity of the morning, and feel a quiet joy settling into your heart. The journey continues, the story unfolds, and the steppe remains an eternal and welcoming home for the spirit. The light is now full and warm. The shadows are softening, and the first steps of the new day are being taken with confidence and grace. The morning has arrived, and with it, the quiet, enduring peace of the ancient world. The light of the high morning has now fully established its dominion over the valley, but it does not bring with it the frantic energy of a world in haste. Instead, it settles upon the landscape with a heavy, golden stillness, as if the sun itself is content to linger over the textures of the earth. The air, once sharp with the crystalline bite of the frost, has mellowed into a fragrant, liquid warmth that carries the scent of the warming soil and the dry, sweet incense of the curing grass. You stand at the edge of the camp, watching the slow, deliberate movements of the people and the herds, and you realize that this is a world where time is not a narrow path to be hurried along, but a wide, open pasture where one may wander with purpose and peace. The gears stand like ivory monuments against the deep, saturated turquoise of the sky. The white felt, which has shielded the sleepers from the immense silence of the night, now reflects the brilliance of the day, casting a soft, pearlescent glow onto the ground around them. Within the camp, the routines of the morning are concluding with a quiet, practiced elegance. The copper kettles have been scoured with river sand and set aside, their surfaces gleaming like fallen coins. The rugs that were aired in the first light have been brought back inside or rolled for the coming journey, their intricate patterns of crimson and indigo holding the memory of the hearth fire. There is a profound sense of order here, not an order imposed by law, but one born of a deep, cellular harmony with the requirements of the land. You watch an elder sitting on a low wooden stool near the smouldering remains of the fire. His hands, weathered and strong like the roots of the ancient birch trees, move with a slow, meditative rhythm as he repairs a piece of harness leather. He does not look up as he works. His focus is absolute, a testament to a life where every object is worthy of care and every task is a form of devotion. Around him, the life of the camp flows like the river, steady, unhurried, and inevitable. There is no shouting, no clatter of metal, no sense of urgency. Even the children move with a certain gravity, their games mirroring the essential labors of their parents, their voices rising and falling in a melodic cadence that blends perfectly with the song of the skylarks. The horses have moved further out, into the valley, their coats now dry and shining in the full light of the sun. They graze in a loose, shifting formation, their tails swishing rhythmically against their flanks, their ears occasionally swiveling to catch the sound of the wind in the high ridges. There is a great dignity in their presence. They are the true citizens of the steppe, the ones who understand the language of the grass and the secrets of the horizon. As you watch them, you feel a sense of profound envy for their simplicity, for the way they exist entirely in the present moment. Their lives defined by the quality of the water, the richness of the pasture, and the companionship of the herd. The river, which seemed so dark and mysterious during the night, is now a transparent ribbon of life. You can see the smooth, multicolored stones on its bed, each one polished by eons of flowing water. The reeds along the bank sway in the breeze, their feathery tops bowing in a synchronized dance of greeting. The water carries no debris, no waste. It is as pure as the air that feeds it. You walk down to the bank and dip your hand into the current, feeling the invigorating chill that speaks of the distant mountain snows. It is a reminder that everything here is connected, the mountain to the river to the grass to the horse, and the horse to the human. It is a closed circle of existence, a perfect system that requires nothing from the outside world. Memory drifts through your mind like the thin, white clouds that are now beginning to form over the distant peaks. You think of the places this camp will see in the coming weeks. The high mountain passes, where the air is thin and cold. The wide salt flats, where the horizon disappears into a shimmering haze. And the deep, sheltered valleys, where the autumn grass turns to a rich, burnished gold. These places are not just locations on a map. They are chapters in an eternal story, a narrative that is written and rewritten with every migration. To be a part of this life is to be a part of a living history, a story that is told in the language of movement and the grammar of the seasons. The wind has softened to a mere ghost of a breeze, a tentative touch that barely disturbs the surface of the river. It carries the faint, sweet smell of the wild roses that grow in the hidden coulees and the earthy, grounding scent of the moving herds. There is a sense that the earth is satisfied, that the balance between the light and the dark, the heat and the cold, has been achieved. The vastness of the steppe, which can feel so intimidating in its scale, now feels like a protective embrace. It is a land that asks for nothing but respect, and in return, it offers a freedom that cannot be found within the walls of a city. As the sun continues its slow climb toward the zenith, the sounds of the camp begin to fade into a collective hum of contentment. The work of the morning is done, and the heat of the day encourages a period of quiet reflection. People sit in the shade of the gares or beneath the sparse canopy of the willows, their bodies relaxed, their spirits at rest. This is the true luxury of the nomadic life, the ability to be still, to observe the world without the need to change it, and to find fulfillment in the simple fact of being alive under the open sky. You find a spot on a gentle rise overlooking the valley, the grass soft and fragrant beneath you. From here you can see the entire panorama of the camp, the white tents, the dark clusters of animals, the silver thread of the river, and the infinite stretch of the golden plains. It is a scene of perfect, undisturbed harmony. There is no conflict here, no tension, no Every element of the landscape is in its rightful place, contributing to a beauty that is as old as the world itself. You feel a deep, resonant peace settling into your bones, a stillness that mirrors the stillness of the land. The horizon is a clear, sharp line that separates the gold of the earth from the blue of the sky. It is a boundary that invites the spirit to wander, yet also provides a sense of containment. You realize that the nomad does not travel to reach a destination, but to remain in a state of grace. The movement is the prayer. The journey is the sanctuary. In the silence of the high morning, this truth becomes as clear as the water in the river. You are a part of a rhythm that will continue long after you have left this valley, a pulse that has beaten in the heart of the steppe for 10,000 years. The shadows have shortened to small, dark pools at the base of the gares. The light is absolute, illuminating every detail of the world with a fierce, beautiful clarity. You watch a single eagle soaring high above, its wings spread wide, its body a dark cross against the turquoise dome. It does not flap its wings. It simply rests upon the air, a sovereign of the heights. You follow its flight until it becomes a mere speck in the distance. A reminder of the scale of the world and the insignificance of human haste. The air is now warm and still, the breeze having retreated to the mountain peaks. The silence of the steppe returns, but it is a different silence than that of the night. It is a bright, vibrant, quiet, filled with the warmth of the sun and the breath of the grass. You close your eyes, the light creating a soft, reddish glow behind your eyelids, and listen to the heartbeat of the land. It is a slow, steady thrum, a grounding vibration that seems to pull you deeper into the earth. You are no longer a visitor. You are a part of the soil, a part of the wind, and a part of the light. The gears stand motionless, their felt walls soaking up the sun's energy. The horses have stopped their grazing and stand with their heads lowered, their spirits drifting in the warm haze of the midday. The river flows on, but its sound seems to have become a part of the silence, a liquid texture that the ear no longer distinguishes. The world has reached a point of total equilibrium, a moment of perfect, unadorned existence. As you sit there, you feel a sense of gentle completion. The journey of the night has led to the light of the day, and the light of the day has led to this moment of absolute peace. There is nothing more to be said, nothing more to be seen, and nothing more to be done. The story of the steppe is a story of cycles, and you have found your place within the circle. The land is wide, the sky is endless, and the peace is profound. The sun hangs suspended in the center of the heavens, its light a benediction upon the grass and the stone. The nomads rest, the herds rest, and the spirit rests. The ancient rhythm of the life continues, a silent and enduring pulse that connects the past to the future in a single golden moment. The valley is still, the wind is gone, the shadows are held, the world is at peace, the land itself is resting.